We are less than 2 months until the NHL's trade deadline. Who on the Sharks roster is staying and who could be going?
You're Locked On Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome to Locked On Sharks, the premier hockey podcast covering your favorite team in the Bay Area. My name is JD Young, caretaker of the Reef, also the co-host of Locked On NHL's Tuesdays with Seth. I want to thank you for making the Locked On Sharks your first listen, proudly part of the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. And if you want to be an everydayer, all you have to do is just follow wherever you get podcasts, or you can watch on YouTube as well. And today, we're going to start looking at the trade deadline as we're now less than 2 months away from it. So we're going to be kind of looking at trade deadline goals for the Sharks, what they should try to accomplish, who I think is staying, who I think is potentially available, but I don't expect them to go. And then dig into the players who I do expect to at least be commodities and kind of why it would make sense for the Sharks or another team and to acquire them. So let us start today by first kind of talking about the trade deadline and the big goal, I think, for the Sharks. And as the Sharks head into this trade deadline, I don't think we're going to have hopefully not any of the big fireworks that we had last year, right, with the surprise Tomas Hertl trade. For Mike Grier, right, it feels like you've stripped out as much as you possibly can when it comes to kind of big chunk pieces out. Like now you're still in the kind of asset gathering phase, but now you're trying to get picks that could probably help you do other things, right? And whether these are mid-round picks that you can help when you facilitate trades, help to move up in the draft board, just give you some more ammunition for other things, or keep looking for underutilized players elsewhere, whether they're AHL players that don't seem to have a path forward, i.e. Jack Thompson last year, or guys who are maybe young and just need an opportunity elsewhere. And, you look at like a Fabian Zetterlund when the Sharks got him in the Timo Meier trade, or, just kind of players like that where maybe they're not the right fit, or maybe they could kind of do things elsewhere. So I think those are kind of the two big goals, at least in the acquisition side for the Sharks, because I do think the Sharks should try to get more good players, whether that's good players that are going to be that are still young. That's what I think they should be doing. I don't think they should go big game hunting for like a JT Miller or Elias Pettersson. That is not what the Sharks should be doing. I would highly discourage it. One, it doesn't make sense for this team right now to be trying to get big time players like that. Two, the costs / ammunition to go do something like that, just from where the Sharks are at in their rebuild, it doesn't make sense. And yes, having Elias Pettersson on the team would be really awesome, but why? Right? This team is going to be about Macklin Celebrini and Will Smith and Eklund and all these younger players who are going to be kind of coming into their own over the next couple of years. Getting one of these big name guys, it just doesn't make a lot of sense for where the Sharks are right now. So I don't expect them to kind of do anything like that, but I do expect them try to find yourself, a buried gem, or try to find a player who you think can be valuable to you in the next couple years. I think that's going to be Mike Grier's kind of big goals, is as he continues to try to, kind of turn this roster around, adding young pieces, trimming some of the fat off the roster, et cetera, et cetera. I think that should be his kind of trade deadline goals or those. And we'll spend some time. I'll dig through, especially once we start to kind of get, it's big board season now. We're starting to get all the trade boards and stuff. But once we start to get guys who are, teams that are kind of connected with some of the Sharks pieces, we can start going through their rosters and their prospects and try to figure out, okay, here's the guy to target. So last year we successfully targeted Jack Thompson. So hopefully we can maybe try to do it again this year. So, but let's start by kind of looking at the Sharks roster from top to bottom and see who makes sense to actually stay here, who makes sense to who I think is going to go, et cetera, et cetera. So let's look at, of course, first guys who aren't going anywhere. Macklin Celebrini, Logan Couture, William Eklund, Colin Graff, Will Smith, Tyler Toffoli, Wenberg, and Zetterlund. None of these guys are going anywhere, or at least I would be extremely shocked if one of those guys get traded. Of course, got young guys like Celebrini, Smith, Eklund, like those guys, right? These are part of your future, right? Logan Couture, who's on IR right now, like he's not going anywhere. And then Wenberg and Toffoli, both guys who have no movement clause or no trade clauses right now. Toffoli, whose wife is from the Bay. Like these guys want to be here. Like you went out of your way this offseason to sign those guys. Like none of those guys are going. I'd be extremely shocked if anybody on that list gets traded. On the defensive side, kind of the same thing. Liljegren, Mukamadulin, Thrun, Vlasic, Wallman, and Askarov. Wallman, who's on IR right now, should be back on Saturday. None of those guys make a lot of sense for the Sharks to trade right now. Liljegren, who you just acquired this season, he's had his ups and downs, but I think he's having a solid kind of, season so far for the Sharks. Mukamadulin, Thrun, both are expected to be part of your future. Vlasic, with his contract, like nobody's taking on that contract. And Jake Wallman, who's been an amazing find and still has 2 years left on his deal. Like, arguably the best Sharks defenseman this year. And I don't think there's much of an argument to it. And then, of course, Askarov, who is your goalie of the future. Like, none of those guys make sense to trade. So I would be extremely shocked if any of those guys were part of a deal for the San Jose Sharks. So the next group of guys here who are all forwards are guys who I doubt, like I would be surprised, but there's a world where these guys could get traded. So Ty Dellandrea, Barclay Goodrow, Carl Grundstrom, Klim Kostin, and Nikolai Kovalenko. So all these guys are pretty new-ish to the Sharks. Klim Kostin out of that group is the veteran because he came over at last year's trade deadline. All the rest of those guys you acquired in some sort of fashion, either this summer or in Kovalenko's case, this year. So while I don't expect them to be traded, there is a world, and it could be one of those things where maybe if it's part of a kind of a big splashy deal or something, you might need to make some salaries match or something like that. Like there is a world where one of those guys could be traded. Goodrow, I think, would be tough because of his salary, and especially with the term on his salary, right? Barclay Goodrow is still owed, was it 2 more years after this season at like $3.6 million. Is that correct? Yeah. No, sorry. Yeah. 3.641. So 2 years after this season. Of course, we know about the waivers thing. Like he says, a 15-team no trade. So he could, if he did want to go somewhere, like he could potentially waive and stuff. But I think with his contract, and especially since the Sharks still don't have a way to retain salary on their own, I doubt Goodrow would get traded. And, some of these other guys like Grundstrom and Klim Kostin and some of these other kind of like fourth line guys, like they don't really kind of provide either. They don't really have like a skill that kind of sets them apart that other teams would covet, right? Some guy we'll talk about later might be fourth line guys, but they have like very specific skills that they're very good at. And teams might covet those skills kind of heading into the playoffs. So I'd be surprised if any of those type of players get traded. So let's finish up. We'll look at the rest of the roster here and see who's going to get traded. And then we'll dig into kind of each player by player to see what they potentially bring. So, all right, of the forwards. So the 3 forwards who I think could be traded: Mikal Granlund, Luke Kunin, and Nico Sturm. And then on the defense and goalies, Cody, Ceci, Mario Ferraro, Jan Ruda, and then Alexander Gorgiev and Vitek Vanacek. So we'll get into each one of these individually, but those are all the guys. Like, if any of those guys got traded, it would not surprise me. And I think there's varying degrees on who could go and who couldn't go. And, I don't think both goalies get traded, but that would be really crazy if both goalies got traded. But they're like, all these guys, I think, are guys who Mike Grier is going to be shopping to try to trade between now and March 7th trade deadline. So we'll dig into these guys kind of individually. We'll start with the forwards, why it makes sense for some of these different forwards, and then we'll look at the defense and goalies and kind of what to potentially expect from them. So we'll get to that here in just 1 second. From big upsets to game-winning drives, the NFL playoffs are better with FanDuel, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. It's $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. The FanDuel app gives you everything you need for live bets, same game parlays, and so much more. And right now, again, give me all the Josh Allen touchdowns and give me a Bills romp. I think it's a very easy weekend for the Buffalo Bills as they host the Denver Broncos. I don't care about the spread. I think that game has like 38-10 written all over it, because I just think the Bills are a very good team who is going to go very far in this playoffs. So visit FanDuel.com to join today. Get started with $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Make this playoff season unforgettable with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. All right. Before we continue, of course, want to thank you guys for making the Locked On Sharks your first listen. For your second listen, go check out one of the other great shows you have. Of course, Locked On Fantasy Hockey. They got you covered with your start, sits, who to drop, who to pick up on waivers, all that fun stuff. Or check out any other shows here in the Bay Area. Locked On Niners, Locked On Warriors, Locked On A's, Locked On Giants. Plenty of great stuff here at the Locked On Network. We cover your team every day. All right. So let's start with the forwards. And I just have these in alphabetic order it's not like who I think is going to get traded most likely, but probably the biggest piece for the Sharks now after the Mackenzie Blackwood trade would have to be Mikal Granlund. Granlund, who's in the last year of his deal at $5 million AAV, 32, turns 33 here in February. This season, he's played 41 games, 11 goals, 24 assists, 106 shots on goal. Average time on ice, 21 minutes and 9 seconds a night. Corsi for 43.95. Goals for 46.81. Why it makes sense for the Sharks to trade Granlund? He's 32, going to be 33 years old. He's going to probably command a pretty similar-ish salary this offseason. And for the Sharks, you're not in a competitive window, and a guy like Mikal Granlund, who's performed very well. Mikal Granlund has been great for the San Jose Sharks. He probably wants to try to go win somewhere and get a nice contract as he tries to win somewhere. And the Sharks can give him a nice contract if they so choose to do so. And it sounds like there has been some initial discussion there, but I do also believe Mikal Granlund, he's been a good soldier, probably wants to try to go win. So I think Granlund does get traded, and the return is going to be interesting because, one, the Sharks don't have a retention slot to make things easier. So they're going to have to most likely, you're going to have to find a third team who eats part of Granlund's contract as you trade him to somewhere else. So, and that does bring down your return a little bit. I'm always hesitant to the Sharks should get a first round pick or something for him, because again, it's hard to kind of tell the market right now. And I think Granlund's going to be one of those guys who maybe after some of the kind of top pieces get moved, a team might kind of stiff around, especially if they want to really bulk up their third line center. Trying to find a guy who can play in all situations, which we know Mikal Granlund can do. So I do think, though, the Sharks I think he is, out of all these players, I think he's the guy who you probably get the best return from. Just because I think he's the best player that they have. And yeah, the salary is a little sticky there, but I think they'll be able to kind of figure out, maybe the Sharks have to kind of give up something, kind of like when they originally traded Barclay Goodrow, right, where they traded a third-round pick to get a first-round pick. Maybe they sweeten the pot a little bit, especially for that retention team, to try to kind of get a little bit nicer thing in return. So that could be something that they look to do. But I think, yeah, like I said, I think Granlund is your kind of best piece available right now. Next, Luke Cunningham, he's in the last year of his deal at $2.75 million, 43 games, 10 goals, 7 assists, 63 shots on goal, 1505 average time on ice. Corsi for 40.6, goals for 43.75. Why it makes sense for a team to acquire Luke Cunningham, or what type of team who's looking to add some grit and some scoring grit in their bottom six. And I think that's what Luke Cunningham does. We know he's very much well liked in the locker room. All the guys, kind of speak up about him. Team that's wants to maybe add to their penalty kill, like that's the role. And those type of guys are always looked for at the trade deadline. You're not going to get much. You're probably going to get like a fourth or fifth round pick for a guy like Luke Cunningham. But those are the type of players are always looked for at the trade deadline. Guys who can kind of come in and they have a role. And Luke Cunningham, he's going to play hard. He's going to forecheck. He's going to score some goals for you. And that's the type of player that, again, a lot of teams kind of look for that, especially on their kind of fourth line. And you never know, like there's always those stories of those random guys who score a big goal, and Luke Cunningham has that random guy who scores a big goal like written all over him. You could totally see Luke Cunningham scoring a big goal in like a game 6 to put some team up, like 3 games to 2 or something, or I guess up, to win a series or something like that. Like you totally see Luke Cunningham doing something like that. So yeah, I think that's kind of what Luke Cunningham would do. And for the Sharks, like you could make the argument to keep him because of kind of the value, especially he provides in the locker room and stuff. But I think for the Sharks, I mean, you have like a lot of, we've talked about before, you have a lot of these kind of same guys with Dellandrea and Cunningham and Grundstrom and like Goodrow. They're all like, you have a lot of these same type of players. So you can trade one. Next, the final guy of the forwards, Nico Sturm, age 29, in the last year of his very manageable $2 million AAV contract. 36 games this year, 4 goals, 5 assists, 23 shots on goal, 943 time on ice, 45-65. Corsi for goals for 37.93. And while the nothing from those numbers blows you away, Nico Sturm 1000% has a role that, again, GMs look for at this time of year. Nico Sturm, an absolute face-off wizard, one of the best face-off guys in the NHL. He can play on the penalty kill. He's a perfect fourth-line center. In fact, he won a Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche playing as their fourth-line center. He's a perfect role guy for a team who's trying to solidify their fourth line or bottom 6 type of, with a guy like that who has a role, performs his role very well, and kind of like Cunningham, I think he's probably looking like a 5th or 6th round pick type of for Nico Sturm, but there's a reason why teams will look for Nico Sturm. If you want to keep Nico Sturm, that's totally fine, especially if you want to make sure you don't really kind of crush your center depth here. That totally makes sense. But I think with this contract, again, it's at $2 million. That's an easy fit for most teams, especially when you get to the trade deadline. Even if the Sharks have to take back a contract or something like that, maybe helps sweeten the deal to kind of bump that up, that pick up a little bit. But yeah, I think Nico Sturm is a player that a lot of GMs would be very happy to trade for, and know exactly you're going to get, exactly what you're getting from Nico Sturm every night, shift in, shift out. He works hard. He's going to win faceoffs for you, and he's going to play on the penalty kill and improve your penalty kill. So that's it among the forwards of who I think are going to be tradable players for the Sharks, who I think are the kind of the big players to be traded. We'll look at the defense and we'll look at the goalies here in just 1 second. If you want to get to the tank, go catch a Sharks game, or if you want to go up to the Chase Center, catch a Warriors game, or whatever event you want to go to and you need tickets for, you need to check out Game Time. Game Time has made it even easier to get tickets to your favorite events with their new feature, Game Time Picks. This feature filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Use Game Time all the time. We used it a couple weekends ago. We went to see these Sharks Flames. I got to sit 10 rows behind Askarov, watch Askarov do Askarov things as the Sharks offense couldn't score. Did see a Celebrini goal, which is always really fun. So Game Time made it super easy to get tickets, transfer them, make sure everybody in my family has tickets. It was great. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game time. All right, let's finish up here by looking at 3 defensemen and 2 goalies who I think could be on their way out. Let's start with one, Cody Ceci, who's in the last year of his deal at $3.25 million AAV, 43 games played, 3 goals, 8 assists, 46 shots on goal, playing almost 22 minutes a night. Corsi for 43.63, goals for 40.82. And why does it make sense? Cody Ceci, who's played a lot of hockey on a lot of good teams. He was on the Edmonton team that went to Game 7 last year. Big right-handed defenseman. GMs love them, big right-handed defensemen. Cody Ceci is one of those guys. While we, as fans, may not appreciate Cody Ceci and what he kind of does, general managers salivate over guys like Cody Ceci. Because you can throw him over the boards. He's definitely played way too, kind of a much more elevated role with San Jose. Cody Ceci is like your 4th or 5th defenseman. Probably feeling pretty good. So, a team who's looking to kind of bolster their defensive core. If you see a team looking for right-handed shot defenseman, Cody Ceci, let's make it happen. So he's not gonna run the power play or anything like that, but they want guys who they can rely on. And I think Cody Ceci, again, as fans, we give Cody Ceci a lot of slack, we make his life a little tough, but I think he is definitely valued more in the hockey community than what we as fans do. So I wouldn't be surprised if Cody Ceci fetches you a solid return. So especially for a guy who, remember, Edmonton paid the Sharks to take his contract. So anyway, yeah, wouldn't be too, if you can pay someone to take his contract and then you turn around and then you get something else from him as well, that's not too bad. All right, next, and this one might be a little controversial, but Mario Ferraro, 2 years left at $3.25 million AAV, 43 games, 3 goals, 4 assists, 42 shots on goal, 2014 average time on ice, 44.42, 36 point Corsi 4, 36.36 goals for. So Mario Ferraro has quietly been available. The Sharks have listened to offers for Mario Ferraro. They just haven't got one that they like. And if Granlund doesn't get you the best value, Mario Ferraro is the guy who might get you the best value, because one, he's got a very reasonable contract with term. And especially if you're a team who is a little tighter up against the cap, having a guy like Ferraro, who again, if he's like your fourth or fifth defenseman, at that like that price, that makes about a lot of sense for them. So, and then they don't have to. That's one less hole that they have to kind of worry about filling here. So, for the Sharks, again, Ferraro's in kind of that weird age where he's not. It's going to be difficult if he's going to be part of your next core piece, right? He has dealt with a little bit of injuries here and there. He is an emotional leader, right? It's going to be a tough decision with Mario Ferraro on if he should stay or go. But just I wouldn't be surprised, especially if a team is looking for a defenseman with some term that they can kind of plug into their, second pairing or third pairing defenseman. I wouldn't be surprised if a team, maybe they miss out some guys and they get a little desperate and Mario Ferraro's there. They might be willing to pull the trigger on that. And I don't know, like the Sharks are going to have to revamp their D core here sooner rather than later. And I just don't know if Mario Ferraro is a long-term piece to the Sharks defensive core. But yeah, we'll see. Like I said, I know like the Sharks they've asked a lot for Mario Ferraro. So if he does get traded, you're probably getting a really nice, pretty solid haul for Mario Ferraro. So, and then last among the defensemen, Jan Ruda, 34, 1 year left at 2.75 million AAV, 43 games this year, 1 goal, 5 assists, 45 shots on goal, playing just a hair under 17 minutes a night, 43.73% Corsi for, goals for 40.82. I don't know if Ruda gets traded, but if he does, it's probably a late pick type of thing. You've seen his ice time definitely decrease. I think he's played a little bit better recently. I think Ruda needs to be playing with a kind of puck moving defenseman. But I don't know if a team would rather just kind of for that price, just kind of stick with maybe somebody at a more cost efficient contract. But so of the three, I think he's the least likely to get traded if I had to kind of between those three defensemen, but just want to throw him out there, especially as an expiring contract. He's a guy who I think could be on the way out as well. So let's finish up with the goalies here. So we have two goalies, of course, and this is going to be an either-or situation. To be honest, I think it's either Gorgiev or Vitek Vanacek or neither. But it's going to be one of the two, not both. So, of course, Gorgiev, who just got over here, but has 1 year left on his $2.924 million. Remember, the Avs did eat a little bit just to get it under $3 million. I think makes it a little bit more tradable. 24 games this year, 3.53 goals against, 876 save percentage, has gone up a little bit with the Sharks. Goals for 76, expected goals allowed 66.4. So his goals saved above expected minus 9.6 with this 745 high danger save percentage. Gorgiev had we talked about it after the Vegas game. Like he played really well after that second goal, that really bad goal. He played really well. I think for Gorgiev, it's a combination of confidence / overusage with the Avs, and if the Sharks can kind of manage him a little bit and maybe put him in a little bit better position to succeed, they might be able to get something out of him. But the book just might be out on Gorgiev and he might just be toast too. Again, he might have just gotten run into the ground by, unfortunately, by the Colorado Avalanche. So we'll see. The other guy here, of course, Vitek Vanacek, who is hurt right now. 1 year, $3.4 million AAV, so a little bit tougher contracts, about $500,000 more. 14 games this year, 384 goals against, 885 save percentage, 47 goals allowed on a 41.75 expected goals. So it's minus 5.25, 5.3, 784 high danger save percentage. It's tough to project with Vanacek right now because he is dealing with that broken cheekbone. Now, after the errant puck hit him when he was, was the backup. And really, until Vanacek gets back, this conversation's a little mute because you can't really do anything until you have 3 healthy goalies to try to make a decision there. So I do think, like I said, I do think Mike Grier is going to try to trade one of these 2 guys. Can he successfully trade one of these 2 guys is another story. And then you're going to have, if he can't, you're going to have the big decision of how to manage 3 goalies. You just keep all 3 up. Do you try to waive one and send him down to Barracuda? Do you just send Askarov down to the Barracuda? A conversation I'm sure we'll have 17 times before we actually know the answer. So that's it. That's everybody. So I do think, again, we have plenty of time. We'll spend some more time to, again, once we kind of start to get teams and matches who make sense and kind of people to kind of target and get to know other kind of teams' rosters. We'll definitely do that, and fake trades and all that fun stuff. So wouldn't be surprised too also if before the 4 nations shut down, if we do see a flurry of trade activity as teams try to kind of get their guy, or a team like the Sharks, right? You want to trade your guy before something potentially bad happens to him. So, and especially like the Sharks only have Mikal Granlund going to 4 nations. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe they do try to work out a trade before 4 nations. So, but anyway, that's going to be it for me today. We'll be back Friday night after the Utah game. We'll break that down. So make sure you guys are following wherever you get podcasts. And of course, you can watch on YouTube as well. If you're watching on YouTube, go ahead and subscribe, hit the like button. That way, 1, it helps spread the word. And 2, that way, when all the new episodes drop. Or if you listen in the car, wherever you're listening to, thanks again. You can get the podcast wherever you get podcasts, all that fun stuff. So follow the show on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Locked On Sharks. Follow me on Twitter and Blue Sky at My Fry Hole. Until Friday night. Bye, friends.